My name is Gabriella Hayes. I'm 34 years old, and until recently, I genuinely believed stability meant safety. I thought if two people built enough history together, enough routines, enough tiny rituals nobody else understood, eventually those things hardened into permanence. I thought love became durable after enough years together, like something weathered smooth instead of broken apart. I was wrong. Because sometimes a relationship doesn't explode all at once. Sometimes it quietly rots underneath you while you're still sending wedding invitations. Nathan Cole and I had been together for a little over 4 years, engaged for 8 months. Our wedding was 23 days away when my entire life split cleanly into before and after. I worked in logistics for a medical supply company. Nathan worked for a boutique event agency, which felt painfully ironic later considering how skilled he was at making disaster look elegant. From the outside, we looked solid. Shared condo most nights, joint wedding spreadsheets, seating chart arguments that felt normal enough to mean we were healthy. Engagement photos in Freedom Park, a favorite brunch spot where the servers already knew our order before we sat down. We had all the little routines people point to when they say, "Oh, they're definitely going to make it." But the last 2 months before the wedding, something shifted. Nathan became secretive in ways subtle enough to make me question myself instead of him. His phone stayed face down. Notifications disappeared. Random errands stretched into 2-hour disappearances. Vendor meetings somehow lasted until midnight. If I asked one too many questions, he got irritated immediately, telling me I was adding pressure when he already had enough stress planning the wedding. And I kept telling myself, wedding pressure does strange things to people. That was my mistake. The thing that exposed everything wasn't some dramatic detective moment. It was an iPad. Our old shared one. The one we used for guest lists, playlists, RSVP tracking, and vendor emails because it was easier than forwarding everything back and forth. I was sitting at the kitchen island on a Tuesday night, updating table assignments because Nathan texted saying he'd be late at the office. The iPad buzzed. A hotel confirmation appeared inside the email app. Downtown Raleigh. 2 nights. 1 king bed. Check-in date from 3 weeks earlier. My stomach dropped instantly because 3 weeks earlier, Nathan told me he was in Asheville, helping his best friend Vanessa finalize bridal shower decorations for one of her cousins. Then, another notification slid across the top of the screen. Vanessa Carter. Vanessa had been one of my closest friends since college. She was supposed to stand beside me as a bridesmaid in less than a month. The message preview read, "Delete that thread. She can't see those." I stared at the screen without moving. My whole body went cold so quickly it almost felt chemical. Then I opened the messages. I probably should have stopped after the first few texts. But once your brain understands you're being lied to, it wants the entire wound immediately. There were jokes about sneaking around. Complaints about me being predictable. Photos from the hotel mirror. One picture showed Nathan wearing the navy lounge set I bought him for our honeymoon. Vanessa replied with a heart emoji, and that weekend was worth every risk. Nathan answered, "She'll never know if you stop panicking." Weeks of messages stretched above that. Flirting. Planning. Deleting conversations. Reappearing somewhere else. This wasn't one drunken mistake. This was a relationship happening beside mine. And somewhere in the middle of reading all of it, something inside me stopped shaking. I took screenshots, forwarded hotel confirmations, sent everything to a private folder on my phone. Then I sat there in the silence of my own kitchen and waited for Nathan to come home. He walked in around 8:40, carrying takeout containers, like nothing had happened. That part almost hurt worse than the cheating. He kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted extra sauce, Stood there in our kitchen wearing my favorite gray sweatshirt after spending a hotel weekend with my friend. I looked at him and said quietly, "Who paid for room 1714 in Raleigh?" He froze, instantly. Not confusion. Recognition. His entire body locked, like someone had pressed pause on him. Then came the panic. Then tears. Then, "Gabby, I can explain. I'm more interested in whether you're about to tell me the first version or the real one." He sat across from me, trembling. First came stress. Then cold feet. Then feeling emotionally disconnected. Then, finally, the sentence that still makes me laugh in the worst possible way. It was just one mistake. I remember feeling strangely calm hearing that. Not numb. Not shocked anymore. Just finished. So I said the only thing that came to mind. "Then there's no wedding." Nathan stared at me like I'd spoken another language. He started crying harder, faster now, words stumbling over each other. He said Vanessa meant nothing. Said she was temporary. Said I was his future. Then he said something that almost impressed me with how horrifying it was. "I was going to tell you after the honeymoon. I just didn't want to ruin everything we built over one bad decision." That sentence settled something permanently inside me. He had a full strategy for betraying me while still keeping the venue. I asked how long the messages had been happening. "A few weeks." I asked if anyone else knew. The hesitation answered before he did. I asked if Vanessa was still planning to stand beside me at the wedding. Nathan covered his face with both hands and cried harder. And suddenly, I couldn't even look at him anymore. I stood up, grabbed my phone, and started canceling things. Venue first. Non-refundable deposit? Gone. Photographer next. Florist after that. Live band. Hotel suite in Charleston. Thousands of dollars disappearing, one call at a time. Nathan followed me room to room, crying and bargaining. First, he said I was overreacting. Then he said I was cruel. Then finally, "If you can cancel everything this fast, maybe you never loved me enough to marry me in the first place." That sentence told me more than the hotel receipt ever could. Even caught. Even exposed. Even standing inside the destruction he created. He still wanted me defending myself instead of him facing consequences. I told him to pack a bag and call his sister. The condo was in my name. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw things. I just needed him out of my sight before I lost whatever composure I still had left. Nathan packed an overnight bag slowly, crying the entire time like he was the injured one. Before leaving, he slid his engagement ring onto the kitchen counter dramatically, like I was the one abandoning him. After the door closed, the condo became painfully quiet. I stood there staring at the ring for almost 10 minutes. Not crying. Not moving. Just trying to understand how somebody could look you in the eyes every day while building another relationship behind your back. Around midnight, I sent one message to both families and the bridal party. "The wedding is canceled. Please do not contact me tonight." Then, I blocked Vanessa immediately. By 6 the next morning, my phone looked like a hostage negotiation. 32 missed calls. Texts from relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. Nathan's friends. Vanessa's cousin. People who suddenly had opinions about my humiliation. And somewhere underneath all those notifications, one horrible realization kept repeating inside my head. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a performance already rehearsed by everyone except me. 4 days after canceling the wedding, I learned something important about people. Most of them are incredibly comfortable asking you to show grace when it isn't their humiliation sitting on the table. The first message came from Vanessa's number, before I remembered I'd blocked her. So she used someone else's phone. The text was long, careful, written in that manipulative therapy language people use when they want to soften something ugly enough to deserve consequences. You and Nathan have too much history to throw away over one terrible decision. He's devastated. He loves you. Don't make a permanent choice based on temporary pain. I stared at the message for almost 30 seconds before replying with a single screenshot from the hotel thread. Just enough to show the dates. Just enough to show Nathan's name. Then I wrote, I already made the permanent decision when I canceled the wedding. Do not contact me again. Blocked. Nathan's older sister, Claire, lasted even less time. She called while I was trying to return registry gifts online. I'm not defending what he did, she started immediately, which is usually how people begin defending exactly what someone did. But relationships survive worse things all the time. I hung up before she finished the sentence. The surprising part of that week was Nathan's mother, Diane. She called late that afternoon, and honestly, I almost ignored it, because I assumed it would be another emotional guilt campaign. Instead, she said very quietly, Gabriella, I'm not calling to convince you to forgive him. I didn't answer. She continued, I saw enough. I'm sorry. That was it. No excuses. No dramatic speech about second chances. No attempt to minimize what happened. Just honesty. The next day, she came to the condo to collect the rest of Nathan's things. Garment bags, wedding shoes, random skincare products crowding my bathroom shelves, a framed photo from our engagement session that suddenly looked fake to me. Diane moved slowly through the condo, like someone grieving something she couldn't fix. At the door, she paused and looked at me carefully. You don't owe someone another chance just because they panicked after getting caught. I thanked her quietly. She nodded once and left. Nathan, meanwhile, changed personalities every 12 hours. One moment, he was shattered and apologetic. The next, he sounded defensive. Then angry. Then suddenly reflective and wounded online. He started posting vague emotional quotes about self-sabotage, mental health, and people making unforgivable choices when they don't feel emotionally seen. A mutual friend sent me screenshots asking, Is this about you? I answered, If it mentions hotel rooms and my bridesmaid, probably. The ugliest part of betrayal wasn't the crying. It wasn't even the cheating. It was the administrative grief afterward. Returning registry gifts. Canceling tux rentals. Explaining canceled invitations. Watching thousands of dollars disappear into cancellation policies. Betrayal with spreadsheets. I spent an entire Thursday emailing wedding guests who still hadn't heard. Then another hour explaining to my manager why I needed a personal day without telling him my fiancé slept with one of my closest friends. By the end of the week, the total financial damage sat somewhere around $5,400. And honestly, the money bothered me less than the emotional exhaustion. Everything in my apartment reminded me of a future that never existed. The seating chart still sat open on my laptop. Our honeymoon itinerary remained pinned on the refrigerator. There was a half-addressed stack of thank you cards on the dining table, waiting for a wedding that would never happen. Saturday morning, Nathan showed up at my coffee shop. Of course he did. I'd been going there for years. Same order. Same corner table. Same 7:15 routine every Saturday morning. He walked in wearing one of my old, oversized hoodies. No makeup. Eyes swollen. Acting like he'd wandered in accidentally instead of tracking me through habit. The entire cafe seemed to notice him immediately because heartbreak has a certain theatrical energy people recognize instinctively. Nathan walked slowly toward my table. Can we please talk before you erase me? I looked at him for maybe 2 seconds and realized something deeply frustrating. He still thought this was a negotiation. Like if he cried long enough or looked broken enough, eventually I would return to the version of myself willing to tolerate disrespect. The wedding is canceled, I said calmly. We're over. There's nothing left to talk about. His eyes filled instantly. You're really throwing away 4 years? No, I answered. You threw it away in Raleigh. 3 people near the pastry counter turned to look at us. Nathan started crying harder, loud enough now that embarrassment spread across his face beneath the tears. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered him standing in that hotel room with Vanessa, while still coming home every night pretending to love me. I got up and left. That night, around 1 a.m., another unknown number texted me. Please answer. Vanessa is threatening to expose private things about you. I'm trying to protect you. I stared at the message and actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so painfully transparent. Nathan needed a reason to force communication again. Fear.
Panic.
Urgency.
I replied, if Vanessa has something to say, she can say it publicly. Stop contacting me. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then one final response arrived. Wow. That one word convinced me more than any apology ever had. Because it wasn't sadness. It wasn't regret. It was irritation. The tactic failed, and he resented me for not reacting the way he wanted. That week, something strange started happening once the chaos quieted down. I started sleeping again. Not perfectly, but enough. I went back to the gym for the first time in almost 2 months. I stopped checking my phone every 30 seconds. 2 guys from work invited me to their Saturday basketball runs, and I joined, mostly because sitting alone in the condo felt unbearable. And slowly, painfully, I realized peace feels unfamiliar when you've spent years training yourself to tolerate instability. About 2.5 weeks after the breakup, Nathan shifted from emotional to strategic. He showed up at my office. I work inside a secured building with front desk staff, visitor badges, and absolutely no reason for my ex-fiancé to be standing downstairs pretending we still belong to each other. Reception called upstairs. There's a man here saying he's your fiancé and he needs 5 minutes. I answered immediately. Ex-fiancé. He does not get 5 seconds. Please ask him to leave. Apparently, Nathan refused. Security eventually got involved after he stayed planted in the waiting area, insisting he just needed closure.
Closure.
That word started sounding like a threat. Eventually, he left. But before walking out, he handed the receptionist an envelope with my name written across the front. Inside was a card. For my almost wife. We can still fix this. I photographed it and added it to a folder already getting too thick. Around the same time, fake social media accounts began appearing underneath old engagement posts. Some people move on fast when guilt is involved. Truth always comes out. Funny how people rewrite stories. Nathan also started telling mutual friends I had thrown him out with nowhere to go, which was impressive considering he spent the first week staying with his sister inside a luxury apartment twice the size of my condo. One mutual friend named Tara texted me, "He's making this sound really different than what actually happened." So I sent Tara screenshots. Not everything. Just enough. The hotel confirmation. The messages. The fake number texts. 3 minutes later, she replied, "Oh, he's lying." Exactly. Then, Vanessa finally tried reaching out too. One voicemail from a blocked number. She sounded shaky. Said she was sorry. Said none of it was planned. Said they got carried away emotionally. I deleted the voicemail halfway through. I had absolutely no interest in hearing betrayal explained by the woman who helped me pick wedding flowers. And somewhere in the middle of all this chaos, my life quietly began moving again without them. Not dramatically, just steadily. Like my nervous system finally understood the danger had left the room. At least, that's what I thought then. I didn't realize yet that Nathan wasn't finished trying to force himself back into my life. And I definitely didn't understand how much worse things were about to become. About 3 weeks after the breakup, Nathan stopped acting like a guilty ex-fiancé and started behaving like someone trying to rewrite history before the truth settled permanently. That shift mattered. Because heartbreak can still feel human. Image control feels dangerous. The fake accounts multiplied first. Anonymous comments started appearing underneath old engagement photos. Interesting how fast some people move on after cheating emotionally first. There are always two sides to every story. Some women know how to play victim very well. At first, I ignored them. Then one of my cousins called, asking carefully whether Nathan had accused me of being involved with someone else before the wedding. I remember sitting on my couch staring at the wall after that conversation, thinking, this man cheated on me with my friend and still needs to be the victim. That realization changed something permanently inside me. I stopped protecting him. Not publicly. Not dramatically. But quietly.
Efficiently.
When people reached out confused, I sent proof. Just enough screenshots to eliminate debate. Hotel confirmations. Message previews.
Timeline evidence.
Nothing emotional. Just facts. And facts destroy manipulation faster than anger ever will. Nathan hated losing control of the narrative. I could feel it. The indirect posts became more emotional, more bitter. He started implying I'd become cold and emotionally detached long before the wedding ended. As if betrayal had happened to him instead of because of him. Meanwhile, Vanessa completely disappeared socially. The last thing I heard was that she'd taken temporary leave from work after mutual friends learned about the affair. I didn't celebrate it. Honestly, I barely felt anything anymore. The grief had evolved into something flatter and colder, like emotional scar tissue forming in real time. Around that same period, I met Daniel Mercer. Not dramatically. Not romantically at first. One of the guys from the basketball runs invited a few people out after a Saturday game, and Daniel happened to be there. He was a physical therapist, 36. Calm in a way that felt unfamiliar to me after years of emotional unpredictability. He listened when people spoke. Actually listened. No performance. No constant need for attention. No subtle manipulation hiding inside jokes or charm. The first time we got coffee, I kept waiting for the tension. The game. The emotional confusion I used to mistake for chemistry. But there wasn't any. Conversation with Daniel felt easy.
Steady.
Safe. Which honestly scared me more than chaos used to. A week later, we had dinner together in Southend. Nothing extravagant. Just good conversation and the strange relief of sitting across from someone who didn't make me feel emotionally exhausted. Halfway through the meal, I noticed Daniel's expression shift slightly. Not alarmed. Just alert. I turned around. And there was Nathan, standing near the restaurant entrance, wearing the exact same dark green button-down he wore at our engagement party. That detail hit me immediately because it told me this wasn't coincidence. This was intentional. Somebody told somebody where I was. Or he followed me. Or both. Nathan walked directly toward our table with that brittle smile people wear right before they embarrass themselves publicly. "So this is why you moved on so fast." His voice sounded controlled, but his eyes looked frantic. Daniel glanced at me first, instead of responding to Nathan immediately, and weirdly, that tiny act of respect grounded me more than anything else. "Nathan," I said carefully, "leave." He ignored me completely. Instead, he looked directly at Daniel. "You know she was supposed to marry me, right?" Daniel answered calmly. "I don't think this conversation belongs here." That should have ended it. Instead, Nathan laughed softly in that ugly, wounded way people do when humiliation mutates into anger. "What, you're the stable replacement now?" I stood up. "We are done. You need to leave." Then came the moment that pushed everything past heartbreak and into something else entirely. Nathan grabbed the water glass from the table and tipped it deliberately across Daniel's lap and the tablecloth. Not thrown, not smashed, just enough to humiliate. Like an angry child marking territory. The entire restaurant went silent for half a second. Then, management appeared almost immediately. Nathan started talking loudly now, trying to frame himself as emotional and betrayed. He moved on before we were even over. That sentence almost made me laugh from disbelief. Daniel remained calmer than I was. Honestly, calmer than anyone had a right to be in that situation. Security arrived next. Then, police. Nathan's confidence collapsed the second authority entered the conversation. Suddenly, he looked smaller.
Fragile. Embarrassed.
But the damage was already done. He received a criminal trespass warning and was escorted outside while half the restaurant watched. I sat back down, shaking harder than I wanted to admit. Not because I missed him. Because something about the entire situation felt deeply wrong now. This wasn't grief anymore. It was escalation. Daniel handed me a napkin quietly. "You okay?" I looked at him and almost cried from the sheer unfamiliarity of someone asking that question without secretly making the situation about themselves. "Yeah," I lied. But I wasn't. Not really. After dinner, Daniel walked me to my car. Before leaving, he said carefully, "You don't owe me details, but that didn't feel normal." "It isn't," I admitted. And for the first time since canceling the wedding, I heard the truth fully out loud. Nathan wasn't just heartbroken. He was losing access to me and reacting badly to it. The next morning, I went to the courthouse. I remember sitting inside my car outside the building for almost 15 minutes before going inside, because part of me still couldn't believe my life had reached this point. Protective order paperwork. Evidence folders. Incident timelines. I felt ridiculous carrying screenshots of text messages into a courthouse. Until I remembered the voicemail. "Your car is downstairs. I know you're home." That message changed everything for me. Not because it was the cruelest thing Nathan said, but because it proved monitoring. Watching.
Tracking.
I paid for an attorney consultation that same afternoon. Best money I spent all year. Together, we organized everything. The hotel evidence. Fake number texts. Office security reports. Anonymous social media harassment. Restaurant incident documentation. Voicemail. Unknown calls. The folder became a binder. Then Nathan's mother called me again. Her voice sounded exhausted, in a deep, permanent way. "I told him to stop," she said quietly. "He won't listen." I stayed silent. Then she added, "Do what you need to do." That sentence hurt more than I expected. Because mothers usually protect their children emotionally, But Diane sounded like someone finally accepting she couldn't protect her son from himself anymore. Over the next several weeks, Nathan's messages became increasingly unstable. Long emotional paragraphs. Then anger. Then apologies again. Then fake emergencies. Then silence. Then another unknown number. It was emotional whiplash disguised as love. And slowly, something frightening became obvious. Nathan no longer cared whether contact with me was positive or negative. He just needed access. The hearing date arrived 5 weeks later. And by then, I was no longer showing up heartbroken. I was showing up prepared. By the time the court hearing arrived, I had stopped grieving the relationship. What I felt instead was exhaustion. The kind that settles deep into your body after months of emotional instability, public humiliation, and constantly wondering whether someone who once claimed to love you would respect a single boundary you set. I arrived at the courthouse carrying a binder thick enough to make my attorney raise an eyebrow the first time she saw it. Tabs. Printed screenshots. Incident timelines. Call logs. Restaurant reports. Office security statements. Voicemails transcribed line by line. At some point, heartbreak had quietly transformed into documentation. Nathan arrived 10 minutes later, wearing a cream-colored sweater and an expression so carefully constructed, it almost impressed me. Soft eyes. Hair neatly pulled back. Gentle posture. He looked less like a man who spent weeks harassing his ex-fiancé and more like someone volunteering at church on weekends. That image was intentional. Everything about Nathan had always been presentation. His attorney leaned heavily into that version of him immediately. They framed the entire situation as emotional instability after a traumatic breakup. Wedding cancellation grief, miscommunication, temporary emotional desperation. The phrase closure came up 3 separate times. My attorney barely reacted. Because honestly, Nathan had already done most of the work against himself. The evidence spoke louder than either attorney ever needed to. The judge reviewed everything slowly. The hotel confirmations first. Then the messages between Nathan and Vanessa. Then the fake number texts. Then office security reports. Then the restaurant incident. Then finally the voicemail. "Your car is downstairs. I know you're home." That line changed the atmosphere in the room immediately. The judge looked over her glasses directly at Nathan. "Mr. Cole," she said calmly, "ending an engagement is not harassment. Repeated unwanted contact after being told to stop is." Nathan's entire expression shifted slightly at that moment. Tiny crack. Tiny loss of control. His attorney quickly tried reframing everything again. My client was emotionally devastated and only wanted closure. And then the judge said something I will probably remember for the rest of my life. Closure is not a legal right. I nearly smiled. Not because the situation was funny. Because for the first time in months, somebody in authority saw the situation clearly without asking me to minimize it for the sake of comfort. Nathan cried quietly after that. Controlled tears this time. Useful tears. The kind designed to make him look emotionally wounded instead of emotionally dangerous. But it didn't work anymore. Not with evidence. Not with timelines. Not with documentation showing exactly how many times he ignored direct requests to stop contacting me. The protective order was granted for 18 months. No direct contact. No third-party contact. Stay 300 feet away from my condo, workplace, and gym. No social media references. No alternate numbers. No showing up unexpectedly anywhere connected to me. No more access. Walking out of that courthouse felt different than canceling the wedding. Canceling the wedding ended the fantasy. The restraining order ended his ability to keep inserting himself into my life. Outside the courthouse, Nathan tried looking at me one final time as officers explained the order conditions to him. I didn't look back. That mattered more than I expected. Because somewhere deep down, I finally understood something painful. People like Nathan survive emotionally through access, attention,
Reaction. Engagement.
even anger keeps the connection alive. Silence ends it. About a month later, Tara told me Nathan was no longer working at the event agency. Apparently, one of their corporate clients had witnessed the restaurant incident firsthand and filed a complaint after recognizing him from previous events. Combined with his attendance problems after the breakup, the company quietly let him go. I didn't celebrate it. Honestly, I mostly felt tired. Vanessa disappeared from the friend group almost completely too. Not because anybody organized some dramatic exile. Adults just quietly stop trusting people who smile in your face while helping destroy your relationship behind your back. That kind of social damage doesn't usually happen loudly. It happens through absence, unreturned invitations.
Silence. Distance.
As for me, life slowly became boring again. And boring turned out to be beautiful. Work promoted me to operations lead on a regional rollout project I'd been fighting for since the previous year. I repainted the condo, got rid of every leftover wedding decoration, returned the ridiculous, oversized monogram sign Nathan ordered for the reception hall. The Charleston honeymoon credits turned into a solo beach trip 3 months later. And honestly, it was the most peaceful vacation I'd ever taken. No emotional guessing games. No tension. No monitoring somebody's moods trying to avoid conflict. Just quiet. Daniel and I kept seeing each other too. Slowly. No rushing. No dramatic declarations. No emotional roller coaster disguised as passion. He texted first half the time. Actually communicated when something bothered him. Never made me feel guilty for asking normal questions. One night over dinner, I told him, I used to think confusion meant chemistry. He laughed softly. That sounds exhausting. It was. That's the terrifying thing about unhealthy relationships. You normalize instability until peace starts feeling suspicious. My mother, who stayed mostly quiet throughout all of this, except for one truly spectacular message she sent Nathan saying, "Do not contact my daughter again," called me after the hearing. You know what the best part is? She asked. What? You lost money, not your life. And honestly, she was right. Because here's what nobody fully explains about betrayal. The cheating hurts. Obviously. The hotel room. The lies. The person smiling in your kitchen while building another relationship behind your back. That part hurts deeply. But the worst injury comes afterward. The entitlement. The expectation that you should absorb humiliation quietly because they finally feel guilty now. Nathan didn't just betray me in Raleigh with Vanessa. He betrayed me every single time he tried turning my boundaries into cruelty afterward. Every fake number. Every public scene. Every manipulative apology. Every rewritten version of reality. Every person he sent to emotionally negotiate on his behalf. That's what finally made me certain I made the right choice. Not that he cheated, but that he genuinely believed I was supposed to help him survive the consequences of cheating. No, absolutely not. When someone treats your loyalty like storage space while they experiment with another life, close the door. Lock it. Change the code if you have to. Let them call you cold. Let them call you unforgiving. Peace is expensive sometimes. But it is still far cheaper than marrying betrayal and spending the rest of your life pretending trust can survive where respect already died.